Hi, I'm Zach, and this is Challenger Vedic Astrology and Tarot. Welcome to the channel. So, today we're going to talk about Taylor Swift and why she's gone through so many breakups. Why are her relationships, always falling apart? And if you like my videos, be sure to like and subscribe. Really helps out me and the channel. And if you'd like a Vedic Sidereal birth chart, a personal reading, or a consultation, the links to those will be in the description box and the comments below. Okay, so when we look at this, we're going to use Vedic Sidereal Astrology, of course. This isn't tropical Western astrology, so keep that in mind. We're going to be looking at our birth chart, digging into her life. She's a famous figure, so it should be okay. But yeah, so let's get into this. Alright, so now that we're looking at her chart, we see that she's a Scorpio ascendant in the birth chart, and then in the Navamsha, she's a Cancer ascendant. Now, we're not just going to talk about why she's gone through so many breakups, we'll touch on other topics too. But I use both the birth and Navamsha always when I look at a chart. Why? The birth chart is a person's early life, from birth until early to mid-30s. The Navamsha is early 30s onwards for the rest of a person's life. You can never forget the Navamsha. The Navamsha is who a person grows into. And then you look at both birth and Navamsha to see how that person is later in life. But honestly, Navamsha placements can even affect a person's birth chart. Like you'll see placements in Navamsha, they will behave like those placements early in life. Now they aren't prominent, but you will see them play out. Alright. But let's start talking about Taylor Swift here. Why has she been through so many breakups? Well, I've rectified her chart here. She's a Scorpio ascendant. Scorpio ascendant, a person has to go through lots of sudden ups and downs in life. Scorpio is the sign of the 8th house originally. 8th house is sudden ups and downs. So she'd experience that. But what do we also see? Jupiter and Moon are in the 8th house. In Ardra. Now, Ardra is the nakshatra of heartbreak and sorrow, as I've already told all of you. So we see she would experience lots of heartbreak, sudden heartbreaks, because it's in the 8th house. But what do we also see? Her ascendant nakshatra is Vishaka. Ascendant Lord is in Vishaka. Vishaka is represented by a V, or a split. It's represented by a split branch, or a fork of lightning. So, splits would be significant in her life. What's a split? A breakup. Two people splitting apart. Her life would become about that early on. But, what do we also see in the ascendant? Now, before I get into that, why is the ascendant so important? The ascendant is you. It's your physical body. You will be like whatever planets are in your ascendant. Plain and simple. They affect you. Even if it's not your ascendant lord. Even if it's not your moon. Even if it's not your Jupiter. They will have an impact on you. But Vishaka can also show a person being indecisive. They're always of two different minds. Now, why has that become bad? Because of the next planet we're going to talk about here. Sun is in Jyeshta. So, Jyeshta is a nakshatra tied to being overly sexual to the point of cheating. So, this shows she would cheat. She would have cheated in relationships at some point. But also, she could have been cheated on with this placement too. So we see both. These are things that we see right off the bat. Now, not only this, Her Rahu is in Dhanishta. Dhanishta is the nakshatra of marital karma. It's the nakshatra of being betrayed. So, she could have dealt with, relationship karma. It doesn't just have to be a marriage. She could have dealt with betrayal in relationships. Rahu is a person's desire and obsession. Their soul's desire and obsession, not necessarily theirs. So, soul would desire to experience those things. But yeah, so she could experience those things. We do see that. And as for betrayal, this could be being betrayed as well. Like I said, she's probably experienced both. Based on her songs, probably both. Now, let's look at her Navamsha and see what we see over here. Because Navamsha is the chart of marriage. Now, in Vedic Sidereal Astrology, this is anybody that you've been in a committed relationship with, where you're living with the person. Living with a sexual partner in Vedic Sidereal Astrology is a marriage. So, the biggest factor we see here is Jupiter in Dhanishta. Dhanishta, like I said, nakshatra of marital karma and betrayal. So we see she would experience these things very strongly. Another factor we see is Moon is in Mula. Now, why does Mula matter? Well, first off, Moon's her mind and emotions. It's the way she would think. Mula is the nakshatra of uprooting things. This is the most destructive nakshatra. You might think it's Ardra nakshatra of the storms and heartbreak and sorrow, but no, Mula is the most destructive I've seen. A person wants to uproot things in their life, change everything. This is in the chart of marriage. Uproot the marriage, change everything, get a new partner. So, that can show that with all the other factors that we've seen. Okay, now let's look at some other factors. So, there are rumors that Taylor Swift might be lesbian, or even bisexual, pansexual. So, let's look at that too. Rahu is in Dhanishta. This is a nakshatra tied to not having children. One of the ways a person does that is by being in a same-sex relationship. Ketu is in Ashlesha. Ashlesha is the nakshatra of not being straight. It is strongly tied to that due to the mythology of Nagas. Nagas are mythological beings that can change their gender at will, so that could even show transgender. But this can also show they can be attracted to any gender. So with that prominent Dhanishta and Ashlesha, and note, they're 1/7 apart. That's a relationship dynamic. Now Rahu and Ketu are always 1/7 apart. But that's how we see Ashlesha and Dhanishta can be same-sex couples. So we see she could be attracted to the same sex. Now, when we look in her Navamsha, what do we see? Her ascendant is Ashlesha. Her Mars is in Ashlesha. So we clearly see that same-sex attraction could be there. Jupiter is in Dhanishta. Once again, that same-sex attraction could be there. So we see numerous factors for that as well. But now let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about why she's so good at music. So, her second house, Sagittarius, with Mercury and Saturn there. Now, why are we talking about the second house? Second house is speech. It's a person's voice. She's a singer. So, we see Mercury and Saturn. Now, the reason they're so significant here. First off, Saturn's a person's profession. It's in the second house of the voice. So, she sings for her profession. It's in the nakshatra of Purvashada. So, Purvashada is a nakshatra tied to older music, tied to older art. It's a nakshatra tied to museums even. But how did Taylor Swift get her start? She was a country singer. Country is an older form of music. I say that as a Johnny Cash fan. It's still an older form of music, damn it. But, so we see she would have made her living through singing older music to start. But what do we also see? Venus. Why Venus? Well, Venus is how a person makes money. Venus is money. So, Venus is in the third house. Third house is a house of performing arts. It's a house of your skills, your efforts. So, Venus is here. Conjunct Rahu. So, Venus and Rahu. Rahu overblows the traits of the planet it's with. It's overblowing Venus. So, we see Taylor Swift is very attractive. We see she makes a lot of money. But also, it's in Dhanishta. Now, Dhanishta is a nakshatra of major wealth. This is the nakshatra of billionaires. But also, Dhanishta is the nakshatra of music. Very strongly tied to music. And once again, in the third house of performing arts. So we see singing older music and performing arts. And then in the Navamsha, we see even more tied to this. We see Rahu in the second house. Second house, once again, the voice. And we see Venus and Sun in Uttar Bhadrapada. Now, why is that significant? Uttar Bhadrapada is the nakshatra of the feet. It's a nakshatra strongly tied to dancing. Because of this. So we see why she would do what she does to make a living. And Saturn, profession, once again, in the third house of performing arts. Now Venus goes into the ninth house though. So later in life, maybe she'd teach to make money. Maybe she would publish books. These are things that we could see as she would get older. Like, those things could be possible. But why did she have that major rise in life? Why is she as big as she is? Well, suns are at Makarka. Sun is the king. This is her soul planet, her soul significator. At Makarka is the planet with the highest degree. It represents a person's soul. So now, her soul is that of a king, of a ruler. Sun is in the first house as the 10th lord of career and status. So she would become like a king in status. It's in the nakshatra of Jyeshta. Jyeshta is the nakshatra of Indra, the king of the gods. So she would become like the king. Numerous factors that show that. Not only that, Mars and Sun are conjunct. The first lord is conjunct with the 10th lord. That is a Raj Yoga. A combination that shows a rise in status. So these are just some things that we see looking at Taylor Swift's chart. Alright. But that's what I have for all of you. And yeah. Hopefully you all have enjoyed this. I know these videos are kind of new for the channel, but I do want to start doing more chart analysis, in particular focused on particular areas of life for a person. We'll touch on some other aspects, but for the most part we're going to focus on a particular area of life, answering a specific question. But alright, I hope you all like this video, and if you like my videos, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want a Vedic Sidereal birth chart, a personal reading, or a consultation, links to those will be in the description box and the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.